November 14, 1908. A telegraph arrives at the Central London sorting office. The message is unremarkable. The sender is not. 3 days prior, Dr. Edmund Carstairs was pronounced dead at St. Bartholomew's Hospital. Yet his final words were still in transit. The postmark on the envelope bears no markings of any London office. No British postal code. No date stamp that corresponds to existing telegraph stations. It reads as impossible. Yet the letter itself is real, paper authenticated, ink verified by the Royal Mail Archives. The official investigation begins with the hospital. St. Bartholomew's records show Dr. Carstairs admitted November 9th, suffering acute pneumonia. His final hours were witnessed by 3 nurses and a physician. Death was certified at 3:47 p.m. on November 11th. The case was closed until the telegram arrived. Inspector Thomas Wade of Scotland Yard was assigned the case. His files reveal methodical investigation. He interviewed all 3 nurses. He questioned Dr. Whitmore. He examined the death room. Everything corroborated the official account. Yet something nagged at him. The postmark, that impossible postmark. On March 14, 1908, a telegram arrived at the Perth Central Post Office. Nothing unusual, except the sender, railway engineer Thomas Ashford, had been dead for 3 days. The postmark bore a location that didn't exist. Thomas Ashford was a respected man. Railway engineer, married, no debts. Found dead in his cottage on March 11th, natural causes, the coroner said. Buried 2 days later. Yet someone sent a message in his name. The telegram contained one sentence. Tell Margaret the first I'm still working. Margaret was Ashford's wife. The message was signed with his full name. But the postmark, that's where reality fractures. No telegraph office bearing that location designation has ever existed in any Australian record. Detective Inspector William Croft arrived at Perth Post Office on March 15th. 28 years service. He'd never seen anything like it. The telegram existed. The sender was deceased. The location was fiction. Croft's first interviews yielded nothing. Post Office manager Thomas Henley insisted protocol was followed. The telegram arrived unmarked, placed in Ashford's mail by routine. No one saw it arrive. No one knew its origin. Croft then examined the physical telegram itself. The paper quality suggested recent manufacture. The ink was standard Perth Post Office stock. But when handwriting expert Lawrence Webb analyzed the signature, he found something impossible. The penmanship matched samples from Ashford's deathbed diary. Webb prepared an official report. His conclusion? The signature was unquestionably authentic. Ashford wrote this telegram, but Ashford was dead when it was sent. The contradiction was no longer circumstantial. It was forensic fact. Croft pursued 2 theories. Theory 1. Forgery by a skilled imitator with access to Ashford's writing samples. But every employee had been interviewed. None possessed the technical capability or motive. Theory 2 was worse. Something outside conventional explanation. Croft decided to follow the postmark. That impossible location designation. He contacted the Colonial Telegraph Authority in Melbourne. The response arrived within days. The location code Croft was seeking didn't exist in any registry. It had never existed, and according to their records, it shouldn't exist. Eleanor Ashford had secrets. Her husband, Magistrate Thomas, controlled every penny. 3 days before his death, she'd begun correspondence with a man in Montreal. Letters hidden. Money transferred. Love, perhaps, or escape. Thomas Ashford was dying. His physician knew it. Heart failure, untreatable, weeks remaining. Eleanor inherited everything. The house, the accounts, the freedom she'd craved for 20 years. His death would be mercy and profit. March 14, 1908. Thomas died. Physician verified, death certificate signed. Eleanor wore black. She grieved properly. But 4 days later, March 18th, a telegram arrived at the post office. Sent by Thomas, from a place that doesn't exist. The message read, Eleanor, forgive me. I know what you planned. I cannot allow it. You will understand soon. His handwriting. Exact, unmistakable. But he was 4 days dead, and the postmark came from nowhere. Eleanor's Montreal correspondence ended. Her plans dissolved. Within a week, she withdrew from society. Within a month, she was institutionalized. The diagnosis, acute hysteria brought on by grief. But the real question remained. How did Thomas send a telegram from the grave? Weeks before his death, Thomas knew Eleanor's secrets. A private detective had tailed her to the train station, watched her post letters to Montreal. Thomas read them all. He kept quiet. He had his own plan, and his own postmark. Thomas had resources Eleanor didn't know about. A brother in the telegraph service. Access to routing codes. And 3 days before his own death, he prepared the final message, written in his hand, timed to perfection, delayed through a network of relays no inspector would ever trace. The postmark, the impossible postmark, was from Faraday Station, a relay hub in the Scottish Highlands. Staffed by a single operator, rural, isolated, a place where routing errors went unquestioned, where a message could be held and released at a predetermined time, where no one would ask questions. 2 weeks before his death, Thomas had written the message, "Eleanor, forgive me. I know what you planned. I cannot allow it. You will understand soon." He timed it carefully. 3 days after his death. The perfect psychological weapon. Not to punish, to confess. The truth was worse than any supernatural haunting. Thomas knew Eleanor had poisoned him. Slowly, digitalis from the garden mixed into his evening tea. A widow's mercy, she'd convinced herself. But he'd known for months, and he'd let it happen. The telegram wasn't punishment, it was absolution. Thomas's final gift to Eleanor, proof that he understood her pain, her desperation, her love. And proof that he chose his own ending. The message was his confession and his blessing. Eleanor was released in 1912. She never married the Montreal man. Instead, she became a nurse, working with the dying and the desperate. The telegram remained with her until her death in 1956. No supernatural mystery, just two broken people trying to understand love through the only medium available, delayed mercy. The Lost Telegram of 1908 wasn't supernatural. It was humanity. A dying man's love letter delivered too late to prevent tragedy, but in time to offer understanding. Sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't about what happened. They're about why. And why, in the end, two damaged people chose grace. 3 days after Thomas Whitmore's death, a telegram arrived at his London residence. The postmark bore no postal district code, no routing mark, no origin city. For forensic document examiners, this single fact rewrites everything we thought we knew about the case. Dr. Eleanor Vance examined the paper itself. Whitmore died on October 14th. The telegram paper bore a watermark, Conqueror Bond, manufactured exclusively for the Foreign Office. But this paper carries a secondary watermark, one that doesn't appear in any surviving Foreign Office ledger after 1897. Then came the ink analysis. Standard telegraph ink should contain iron gall, Prussian blue, and gum arabic. This telegram's ink contained all three, but in ratios not documented in any British telegraph manual from 1900 onward. The proportions match a formula from 1882. Exactly. The handwriting itself was Whitmore's, confirmed by 17 separate comparison points. But a living man doesn't write letters with 1882 ink on 1897 paper using a Foreign Office form that disappeared from records before his birth. The forensic evidence becomes a paradox, a confession written by a ghost. Unless, what if the telegram wasn't sent after Whitmore's death, but before it? What if the postmark wasn't obscured by accident, but by design? The Foreign Office ledger showing 1897 as the cutoff date. What if someone ordered a death to align with a message already prepared? The murder weapon isn't in the telegram. It's in the silence surrounding it. A message deliberately sent through a postal system designed to obscure its origins. A death orchestrated to make the telegram appear posthumous. And a cover-up so precise, it took a century of forensic science to even glimpse the truth. Forensic science has proven the telegram was prepared weeks before Whitmore's death. The ink, the paper, the handwriting, all authentic, but anachronistic. The Murder was premeditated with precision that suggests institutional knowledge. Someone knew how to exploit the postal system's vulnerabilities. But who? The forensic evidence narrows the field. Someone with access to Foreign Office supplies before 1897. Someone with Whitmore's intimacy and trust. Someone capable of orchestrating his death and ensuring the telegram's delivery to create misdirection. The science answers how. It cannot answer who. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They returned with a single verdict. The death of Thomas Whitmore was unlawful killing, orchestrated through systematic deception of postal authority. The perpetrator remains unknown, unidentified, unpunished. The case, closed by forensic certainty, yet unresolved by human justice. 100 years after Thomas Whitmore's death, forensic science has finally written the truth of his murder into official record. But the telegram remains what it always was, a message from the past, bearing a postmark from nowhere, sent by a living man from beyond the grave, and signed by a killer who, 1 century later, has vanished without name or face into the archive of history itself.